if you can do that and sing for people who owe you nothing, and people would come up with tears in their eyes and like tell me the most, like, some of the saddest stories I've ever heard.
Hey, what's up, Elliot? How are you?
Hey man, how are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you. Sorry, I'm a
Awesome.
minute late.
Oh, no worries. I'm Adam, and this is about you and your journey in music. I just watched your new music video as well.
Oh, amazing! Was that the I Bought a Honda?
Yes, that's
Yes,
exactly it. And
I
even
love
you use my name in the song, so I was like, all right.
that's yes, that's it all comes back to you.
Exactly
How
right.
are things?
Amazing. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, not too bad, not too bad. It's a very gloomy day here in New York, so it's a little kind of overcast, and it was quite heavy rain, but other than that, we're doing all right, surviving.
That's good. Yeah, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's supposed to get stormy here
Oh
in a little
yeah.
bit. So we'll see. Maybe your rain is coming our way. We'll see.
Yeah, well, hopefully you avoid it. But I love Nashville. It's a good town.
Yeah. We've been here for about 2.5 years now. I'm from
Cool,
San
cool.
Diego originally.
Oh,
Um,
amazing, amazing.
yeah. So you're originally from Scotland, though, correct?
Originally from Scotland, moved here about just like over 10 years ish ago. 10 to 12 years. And yeah, just kind of never tried to lose the accent. Just always tried
No
to,
reason to.
yeah, try to keep my Scottish root. I've slightly slowed things down a little bit, but for the most part, it's yeah, just trying to keep true to the Scots, trying to keep William Wallace proud.
There you go. There you go. So
Yeah.
tell me about being born in Scotland. What was that like?
It was great. I mean, I didn't really know. Well, I was born in Scotland. I moved to London pretty early with my parents, who were both in the theatre in London.
Oh,
So
cool.
they did a lot of musicals in the West End, which was cool. So I kind of grew up immersed in that world. Came back up to Scotland, and kind of spent. I was in, I think, Scotland for about 5 6 years, and then came back up. So then, like, went to school in Scotland and stuff like that. It was great, love it. I mean, the grass was always greener. It's like you always sort of. I think people in Scotland always think it's like the worst place in the world, and then you leave and you realize it's quite cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. So then I went to music school in Scotland, and then eventually I went to school over here also at like 18. I left Scotland when I was 18 to come to New York, which was a definitely a strange turn of events. That was ignorance was bliss in that sense, that I was just like a sheltered 18-year-old kid that was like, what is the worst that could go wrong? And then you're like, oh my God, like let's move. I'm an only child,
Across the
very close.
world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally. And then that kind of started my journey in the States, which was kind of, it was very kind of like, it was a very defining moment, sort of growing up, being 18, early 20s, stuff like that. And I've spent my whole adolescence pretty much, and adulthood, in New York. So it's kind of weird. It's like I feel like I'm a sort of a hybrid. I feel like I have American isms,
Sure.
but obviously still keeping that true Scottish thing that I've never tried to lose. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird. It's kind of funny.
That's amazing. Well, so I mean, you said your parents were in theater and
Yeah.
musicals. So was that a big part of your life? I think I read that you were in plays and musical theater growing up. Is that true?
Growing up, no, not really. I was just interested in like songwriting
Oh,
and
okay. So it
playing
started
guitar.
there.
Yeah, it started there. That was my first love. And then I fell into musical theater because I basically got asked to leave music school because I was just like too young and just like too I was just not mature enough for that. I was 16, 17, and then I was like waiting tables, and then my parents' friend who'd went to the school that I went to, New York, was like, you should audition for the school. And at the time it was like, no, I'm not trying to do musical theater, like that's not the goal. And but anyway, I auditioned because I'll be honest with you, at the time I didn't really have many options. It was either that or be a waiter.
Right.
And I was like, well, I'll try New York, and I got a full ride, which was like amazing. And
Wow.
so I was and it was kind of like weird because I hadn't really done any theater, but I think they sort of saw the potential in it, and I just kind of was like, okay. um I kind of fell a bit in love with theater. I was like, maybe this could be an option. And back then, like things like Spotify and things like that really weren't on my radar. So I didn't really know how to get a record deal. I was always like, I don't know how to get from A to B. It was always like, I've got all these songs and stuff like that, but I don't know how to like get out there and do it. Where I kind of thought theater was a bit more achievable. I kind of thought it was like, okay, that's a bit more attainable. Like maybe you can still get paid to perform, and but it's a little bit less about like trying to be like a recording artist, so
Little clearer path, right? I mean, because if you get hired if you make it onto a show, then obviously like they'll provide the lines, and you just gotta kind of go through the motions
just show up, say the lines, and then go home. So it's so I kind of put music on hold for many, many, many years. And it was only in COVID again, when everything shut down, that I started like really, I'm sure a lot of people did as well, like really like sort of evaluating and thinking like, is this what I want to do? Is this making me the happiest? Like I think the whole world stopped to think like, am I doing something that I really want to do? And it was my girlfriend who was like, you're sitting on all these, and I started writing again, and she was like, you're sitting on all these like songs, and she was like, I really think there's something in these songs. And I just wasn't very happy with musical theater. I just kind of, it's a very toxic environment, to be completely honest with you. It's just a very, just the people making the decisions are, there's very little creativity at times, and it's all just about like, well, you don't sound like the guy before you, or you don't look like the guy before you. There's very little imagination. It's very much just like, unless you sound and look like the person who did the role before you, you're not in the club.
Right. Yeah, you can't really express yourself as far as like this is the line you're gonna do it this way. You're gonna sing it this way. You're gonna, yeah, exactly.
So it was, and for me, it was always about trying to be, never trying to sound like anyone else, trying to like do my own thing, which, now that I'm in music, is the thing that I think is that's what people are resonating with. But anyway, I got my girlfriend and my girlfriend bought me like an Audio Technica 2020 and a Scarlett 2i2, whatever it is, and then like just like the sort of basics of the basics. And because I had no money at the time, and I was just like, I don't know. And she was just like, just do something with this and see what happens. And then, long story short, I spent the entire lockdown of COVID pretty much making an album. And I was just like, I'm just going to see what happens with it. And I put all my eggs in the basket. And that was truly the defining moment where I thought, moving forward now, I want to make all my money, like rent and food, like modestly, from just playing music. So that stemmed from like busking in Central Park. That stemmed from like, that went to like playing gigs at like music venues, to like playing cover gigs at restaurants. And there was a moment where I was playing 6, sometimes 7 nights a week, just bang. Wow. Like, yeah, a lot of shows. And they ranged from like 3 hours to like an hour and a half. So it was like I really put in the hours. Like I bussed in Central Park for pretty much, on top of the gigs at night, I would bus during the day for 2 hours almost every single day. And sometimes you'd earn a lot of money, and sometimes you'd walk away with very little. And that taught me a lot, actually, about like meeting people, learning songs, and seeing what an audience reacts to. So that was, and I did that for pretty much a year straight, like every single, come rain, hail, or shine. And then so I broke my collarbone, and basically I was on my way to a gig, and I fell off a scooter that I was riding, broke
Oh,
my
wow.
collarbone. Yeah, I broke my collarbone. This is where the sort of discipline of like theater kicked in, because I broke my collarbone. I went to the hospital. They told me I broke it, and I played the gig that night. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So it was very much like, and then I continued playing gigs in a cast essentially for 8 weeks. And I don't say that in a, wow, look at me. It was more like necessity. It was more like, if I don't, because I didn't have a job, that was my job. And if I took 8 weeks off, I would be homeless at that moment.
Right.
So I didn't have a reserve of money. It was very much paycheck to paycheck at that time, and so I was like, I can't lose these gigs. Like, I've worked so hard to get them. So I would turn up, and like my whole arm would be in a like a
Sling. Yeah.
sling,
Oh, my
um,
gosh.
and my hand was like numb, and the whole thing. It was just like it was a scary time, actually, especially as a musician. I'm like, oh, this if this goes, I'm screwed. But thankfully, it all healed up. But that also was a very defining moment where when I was, my girlfriend said to me, "You need to get on TikTok," and I was like, "Oh no, it's not. That is not what I'm all about. I can't cope with that. Like, it's just, to each their own. It's just not what I'm trying to do." And she works in advertising, so she was like, "No, like that really is the way forward. Like, you don't have to compromise so much. You can still be you." And I was like, I don't think that's going to be the case. And I started TikTok, and in the beginning, like, nothing caught. It was like, I was getting very little views, and I was just kind of like, I was getting discouraged. I was just like, well, I told you, like,
Yeah.
this
It's like,
isn't
what's
for
the point
me.
of this? I'm just
What is
putting
the
these up. Yeah. And no
Yeah,
one
yeah.
cares. Right.
No
Yeah.
one, no one cares. And then slowly but surely, I started to, like, when I had all this time with being essentially like, all I was doing was playing gigs, and then when I was not, I was resting. I was in a lot of pain, so I was just on TikTok trying to, like, learn. Okay, like, who's someone that I like, and let's see what they do. So I just did a lot of, like, research on it, and then I think, like, that little bit of, like, education that I gave myself with a little bit of luck and the whole thing, I started to get a little bit of traction. I was like, oh wow, like, some of these videos are, like, picking up a little bit. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. But didn't want to compromise, didn't want to follow any gimmicks or any trends or any kind of things like that. I was just like, let's just put up lyrics, see what lands, and if it doesn't, it's cool, and if it does, great.
Were
Um,
you, sorry, real quick, I don't mean
yeah,
to interrupt you, but I'm just
no,
curious. Are you putting up your own music, like all original songs, or were
yeah.
you doing cover songs?
It was a sort of sprinkled of both. It was like a cover song, and I would do an original song, and then I would do two covers, and all the covers I did, I tried to do, like, my interpretations of them. So I
Okay.
tried to, like, take songs and, like, flip them on their head a little bit, so people were kind of like, "Wait, I know this song," and then they're like, "Oh, it's so different." He's like trying to
I
trying to
love that
show
you
up.
do that, like with your Katy Perry cover, like
Yeah.
that's such a cool version of that
I
song. I always
appreciate
thought
that.
that was a great. I always hear that when I heard that song, I was like, damn, this is like a really good
Yeah,
song, like
yeah.
lyrically and stuff, and like the melody and everything. And then your cover, I was like, that's what I was hearing, like what you
I
did.
I appreciate that. It was, yeah. I like sort of taking songs that, like, even I at times would write off, because you hear a heavy pop production, and then you look at these songs at times and you go, like, wait, these are actually quite amazing lyrics.
Hmm.
So it's stuff like that. And then same thing, I was just gigging. I was doing the thing. I did, like, then I started doing slightly more high profile gigs. I started, like, doing backing singing for, like, Brothers Osborne and Ashley McBryde on, like, the Tonight Show and stuff like that. And again, it's like, I was like, this is great, but never. I wasn't the artist. I was a professional musician, but I was not. I was still like, oh, I just want to be the person that's, like, singing in front of the song. And, I don't want to be in the background. But was still very grateful to be just working as a singer. But and then on as I was doing that contract on the Tonight Show, I wrote this song called "Bleed,"
Hmm.
and it all started with it was at Rock Center, and I I'd been down that road a couple of times. Like I'd been like actually hundreds of times, just for like different things in my life that I had like different good and bad memories on. And I just started. I put my. I never do this, but I put my phone on record, and I just started like talking to myself as I was. I was on a break from rehearsal, and I just was like, I just started like churning out lyrics, and that's the first line of that song. I've been down this road a couple of times before, had my ass handed to me, but I'm back for more. And it all kind of sparked from that thought. And then I just, essentially by the time I went to do the gig with them, I'd pretty much written half the song. And I was like, that's kind of cool. There's definitely a vibe to this song. And I let my girlfriend hear it, and she was like, yeah, I like it. I like it. I think it's good. And I was like, I'm going to put it up. I think there's something in this song. And I put it up the first time, and it got no traction on TikTok. I was like, that's weird. I don't know why. I feel like there's something in this song. I put it up a second time, still nothing came from it. And I was like, okay, this is weird. Maybe it's, I don't know. And then I put it up a third time, and went to bed, woke up the next morning, and it had millions of views at that point.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I went from like having, somewhere between like 4,000 to 5,000 followers, and then within less than 48 hours, I had 200,000 just on Instagram.
Oh
and then
gosh.
same with TikTok, so it rapidly went like wildfire.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It was definitely like, what is going on? And then like all of a sudden, like all the songs that I put out after that, it was like I'd gained like a genuine fan base. Like I'd gained these people that I was like, wait, it was, we were just both very excited to meet each other. We were like, where did these people come from? And the biggest question for on their end was like, where the hell have you been? And then so it's been a weird, and then I met David Massey and the Arista team, and it just felt so organic meeting David and the team. And it was not about numbers. It wasn't about TikTok either. It was just about like, I love what you do as a songwriter. Mm-hmm. I respect the dedication. I see the craft that you've put in, versus other conversations at times felt very data driven. And I don't, to be completely honest, I don't give a fuck about that. Like it's for me, it's just like, it's best song wins. And I understand data is a part of it. And, sometimes even when I'm posting and things don't do well, I'm a bit like, you want it to, people want things to do well. But
yeah, I mean, because you're putting the work in, and if it's not, obviously you've reached you hit a certain goal, and it's like, okay, well, now I want to, surpass that, right?
Right.
So you're always, unless a lot of most artists that I've talked to, are actually no artists I've ever talked to that have ever been like complacent at like, yeah, I hit 1 million, so I'm gonna sit back and do nothing now. It's like 92 million, and if the next one doesn't get 1 million, then
right. And what I always tend to see is like, the faster you go up, you are going to hit a plateau, and you're going to come down. But your career should be a graph. I think it should be up and down, and anything that's, you cannot go up and up and up and up and up and up. And sometimes it's better not to do that, because even like myself, who had such an explosive moment on both platforms, I went viral on TikTok and on Instagram, which doesn't always happen. Like I have friends who've got millions of TikTok followers and have like 10,000 Instagram, where I'm actually evenly split on both,
which is huge.
Which, yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's huge. But the downside of that is, because it was such a big moment, at least for me, it's you have to accept when the dust starts to settle a little bit, and people know you, and they've kind of got to know your thing now. There's always a part of you as an artist that goes like, wait, like that video had 100,000 and this only has like 50,000 views, and you're like, wait, but even 5,000 views 7 months ago would have been huge. So
that's what I was going to say. Yeah, if you really reflected back to 6 months prior, if you got 5,000-10,000 views, your mind would have been blown, right?
Crazy.
I mean,
So,
yeah.
I have to remind myself, and I always say to artists as well, like who have big moments, don't adjust to the success too fast, because we're all, I think as human beings, we're designed to adjust to things for our own like sanity, and we're very adaptable creatures. That's why we've evolved and lived, and
Right.
so I feel like you get a certain level of success, and I think that's when people always say like, I'll get $1 million and I'll be happy, and you'll get $1 million and you'll go like, okay, great, but I need 5 million now to get that, and then you'll get 5 million and you'll get like, okay, no, I've got that now, but I really saw this boat that's 8 million, so if I could get 12, it never
Yeah,
ends.
yeah.
So
Right,
it's
right, right.
it's the same thing. It's like you always have to take a step back. And I think that's the one thing that is good about myself, that I'm not some like 18, I'm 30, so I'm not some
Mhm.
18-year-old kid who got discovered on TikTok and has never done a live show before. And I have friends who are those people I'm describing. So
And I've
that's great.
interviewed a
Like,
handful of those people that had those moments on TikTok, and then
it's yeah, and it's so trust me, when I was 18, I wanted to be that guy. Like I'd be like, how come he got it and I didn't? And you know, I what I always I'm thankful for, whenever I used to get frustrated, I used to for so many years get frustrated and go, I think I've missed the boat. I don't think I'm going to make it now. I think I'm too old. I think it's over. There's all these 18, 16-year-old kids getting signed, which is amazing. The one thing that I'm grateful for is, and I hope that younger kids who get signed can learn this, and if they can, and that is where you really strike gold. It is about putting an older head on younger shoulders, and it's trying to I think for myself at least, I've gained a little bit of experience just on being a little bit older at 30
Mhm.
than I was at 18. So it's regardless of like playing shows, whatever, I've just lived. I've had, failed marriages, I've had failed relationships, I've had shitty jobs, I've had great jobs, I've had jobs that have had nothing to do with music, and I've had jobs that are, the highest level of music. So what that does, at least for me, is it gives me an appreciation. And like when I'm in a position that I am now with an amazing team and an amazing label, and just almost like pinch me kind of moments, it makes you appreciate it 10 times more, because
Mhm.
I've played the shows where no one cares. And I think every artist should do that, because if you're only surrounded by hype men and women who just tell you you're amazing, and you've only ever played shows, once you get a TikTok following and then you sold out venues, that's amazing, and that must be such a surreal feeling. But if one day that starts to slip, and the sales don't go the way you want it to, or the song doesn't do 500,000 a day, and then people start to slightly question the things, if you haven't had any taste of that, that is a harsh reality check to get.
Mhm.
So I think it's all just about like putting in your time, and then realizing like, this definitely is, at least for me, a marathon, not a sprint, in the sense that like, I had quite a bright moment when it kicked off, and I was able to still ground myself and go, this is exactly what I've wanted, because I have had years of building this foundation up. So not to say there's days where I'm like, oh, like this is a lot, and it's not the making of the music that's hard, as you know, it's everything else. It's being, before I had management and before I had lawyers, I was doing all that myself. And that's the thing that
Right.
I feel like, people should tell musicians more about. Like, yeah, focus on the music. That is the most important thing. But there is also another element of like, I had to act as my own manager when I got a record deal. I got everything in reverse. I got a record deal, and then without a manager, without an agent, without anyone, and I had to find a lawyer fast. And between the two of us, I was on phone calls acting like the CEO versus the music, and kind of making it up, being like, no,
Right.
I don't think that, so it's stuff like that, which is, it's a different, there's so many levels to the industry that I was very experienced in playing music, playing live shows, writing songs, but there was a whole other side of this industry now that I've seen that I'm like, wow, it's there's so many more layers that go through it, you know, which is great. But it's just it's been an eye-opening situation.
No, 100%. I mean, I love that you said that if you're 18 and that happened, like, would it have played out the way it did? And it's like, I think about my own career. Like, I was on the radio, terrestrial radio, for over 15 years. And like, I can think back when I was working in San Francisco, and I thought I deserved this one time slot in the middle of the day. And I was so mad when they gave it to someone else. They hired outside of the company, or they hired somebody that wasn't at the station at the time. And I think now, you know, and then after 10, 5 more years in the industry, I was thinking to myself, like, I was not ready to do that. Like, if I would have had, then, it's like you have this, wow, that person was the boss and made this other decision for a reason. Like, I didn't know everything. I didn't know anything, to be honest. So it was like, you see those little things, like, at least in my life, and now I'm doing this, and I have had so much experience in the industry that I'm able to do this now. But it was like, beforehand, if I would have just tried to start this and I had no experience, I wouldn't know what the hell I was doing. But all those little victories lead into something.
Yeah, and in the moment, it's I feel like a lot of creative, ambitious people can relate to this. It's like, in the moment when things don't go the way you plan, and then someone says to you, like, everything happens for a reason. You're like, well, fuck that. I don't care about that. This was meant to be the reason. This is the reason. My opportunity I got screwed over. This was, so it's so easy. And there has been times, even to this day, where I sometimes think, like, I should have got that opportunity. But you know what? It's like you can do ifs and buts and here and you can be here or there. At the end of the day, it's like, I truly believe, like, if you want something badly enough, and with a bit of luck, and circumstance can play a part of it. But I didn't come from there's a lot of people who make it in the industry who come from different backgrounds, but at times can be quite successful, and they get bankrolled, and they get, like, don't have a job, and, like, do the whole
just
thing.
Just focus on your art.
Where I'll be honest with you, I had the most supportive parents in the world who understood performing, and maybe not the recording industry, but they were professional singers and dancers, and so they had so much support. But I did not grow up financially set. Like, I did not grow up in a situation where I didn't have to have a job. I never wanted for it. Like, I had a great childhood, but coming to the States, my mom and dad helped me the best they could, but I had to work several jobs, like, at one time. So I was working at a gym, and then I was working as like an in-store model, and then I was working as a waiter, like, all in the same week. But then also trying to, like, do this. So it's, and it's so easy to make excuses and go, like, I'm too busy, I'm too tired. Yes, that can obviously hinder it, where if you've got the whole day to do whatever you want, it is a different experience. But I do believe that if you can find just a little bit of time to put the time in, get your music out there, and promote it in the most organic way to you. It doesn't have to be like following trends, but if you can just, like, find a way just to, like, be true to yourself and just keep doing you, I do believe if it's meant for you, it's going to happen. And I think I am walking proof of that, because I was not bankrolled. I was not, like, discovered by some, silent investor that pumped $10 million into me and pushed me in. I mean, I was the guy clawing my way through the curtain, trying to get to the other side, and at times I felt like giving up, like, many, many times. And, busking in Central Park. I mean, when you think of busking, in a lot of ways, it's, and I mean this in all due respect, because I can say this because I was one of them. There can be a lot of unsavory. Like, I think there was a lot of people that came up to me and went, "Why are you busking? Like, what is this? Like, you seem pretty normal, and you seem like," where I think there's sometimes a thing of, like, street performers can get, it can attract, it's a bit like, I don't want to say it's like the circus, but it can attract a certain type of personality. And for me, it was one of the best experiences of my life. I don't miss it, to be completely honest with you. I don't miss the uncertainty of having to go out and wonder if you're going to make a lot of money or very little. But the one thing it did teach me was, if you can do that and sing for people who owe you nothing, and people would come up with tears in their eyes and like tell me the most, like, some of the saddest stories I've ever heard. Like, if you can touch people on that level where no one cares in New York, no one really gives a shit about what you do, who you are, how much money you have, but if you can cut through on a human level and connect to a stranger so much that they come up and they Venmo you X amount of money that they do not have to do. It's a very, very broken city. If you can like be a little bit of hope for someone, that gave me a bit of hope. So I was kind of like, if I'm that little bit of light for someone else, then it kind of gave me the sense of like, you know what, like, busking really was the thing that spurred me on every day. I was like, you know what, I never know who you're going to meet, and you never know. And I remember my mom and dad being like, oh, yeah, you're going to have to get like a bar gig or something. You can't be busking your whole life. And I was like, well, I know that, but what else is there that's flexible and gives me sometimes great money? And then, so it's great experience. I'm no one's my boss. I just show up when I want, plug in and go. But ultimately it's those type of moments that like have really fed into like what I do now as an artist. And so I think what I'm trying to say is like, anyone who, I always say this when I'm ever doing these situations, because I kind of wish someone had said it to some of the people that I was listening to. Like, I always think like, we're fed in this society to be like, if you hit a certain age, and women get it way more worse than men, but like if you hit a certain age, you can be seen a little bit as useless. And if you don't hit this, or you don't have that, then you're never going to make it. I think nowadays the power is so much in the control of the person who's the creator. I think the days of having to go cup in hand to the industry is no longer a thing. I think it's like, if you want it and you can build a little ecosystem of your own world, then people will come to you, and then eventually. Sure. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing I learned was like, learn how to produce your songs, learn how to write, basically just be self-contained, because when you then you want to get to a point, I used to always say to people, I just want someone to like discover me. I want someone to like sign me, develop me, and put me out there. And that never happened. And I'm so glad, again, it didn't, because the people that get that, it's great, but it tends to be like they lose a lot of control. Where what I was able to do was, because no one was really there in the beginning, it was me just sort of making it up and seeing what stuck and what didn't. When I eventually met the people that I met, it was very much like, my attitude to them was, you can take this or you can leave it, because this train is already moving. So it's not like, I don't need the producers, I don't need the labels, I don't know. I would love to get involved with that, but I don't. There's not a desperation that I once had. So if you want to get involved, then great, and if you don't, then great. Where right. Before it was like, if you don't, well, just stay. Like,
it's like, yeah, you're desperate, right? It's like that desperation, like, oh, come on, please help me out.
And trust me, I was that guy. I was like, this is my shot. This is my huge moment. And sometimes you can really alienate yourself, and you can drive people away. It's the same like dating. It's like, if you go on too strong, it can be a little bit like, oof, it can be hard. But I've also been the guy that's come on too strong. So it's much, much easier said than done. But yeah, it's just it's been a wild couple of years, but especially the last couple of months has just been, it's been a real whirlwind of amazing, like, just everything that I kind of wanted for years has come in less than 6 months.
Yeah, so I'm like, no, that's amazing though, right? I mean,
I
was just gonna say, because you put out Bleed this year. I mean, this whole thing happened this year.
Yeah, Bleed came out in January. So it's and obviously this is just for me, this is just the beginning. It's weird saying that, because I feel like, I've been doing this for a long time, but from my recording professional recording career, this is very, very, I'm in the shallow end. But it's going to be really intriguing to see like what it's like when I start touring, hopefully. And then, it's just like having the chance to like meet the people, even when I played the show in Nashville, like, getting to meet some of these people who were like, just like singing the songs back to me and like telling me like these really intense but beautiful stories, like, like sobbing, like really intense conversations. Those are the moments where like I see a lot of comments where I got a lot of lovely comments that are like, this is amazing or whatever. Some of them are quite heavy comments, but seeing them in person, because sometimes online you're kind of like, oh, does it really affect people?
Yeah,
like
it's
that?
Harder to
it's harder to
decipher it.
But, and sometimes you can go like, oh, you get a bit like complacent, going like, oh, I don't really know if this is actually affecting anymore, or if it's, even when you've got the thing, you sometimes go like, I don't know if this is working. And it was when I actually got in front of these people and then they spoke to me afterwards, it was just like, it's a very surreal moment that, songs that I wrote sitting right here can somehow penetrate into people's lives, and then people have them tattooed on their, and you're like, what? It's just for not having a commercial blow off moment, just from having a kind of organically driven, not like a paid push by a label moment. You're just kind of like, it feels odd. You're kind of like, wait, why was that a mistake to get the lyrics done, or were you thinking of someone else? So just really, really grateful, and could not be, even just like chatting with people like yourself. Like I never take for granted now like any of these meetings, because again, I always dreamed about having these opportunities to talk to people like yourself, having an amazing team, play shows. And I think more artists could take a little spoonful of that, of going like, what, it's, again, because we all adjust, we adjust fast, and we're like, wait, there's only 9,000 people in a 10,000 seat, and you're like, dude, there's still like 9,000 people here that are here to hear you sing.
Exactly,
What I'm saying? So I mean, I could go on a long tangent about that, but yeah, it's been a really cool experience.
That's amazing. I from just based off of what you've been talking about and just the story I've read, I mean, to have your girlfriend buy you just those couple of items to get you kind of back into songwriting, and like you recorded it like in your bathroom or something, like kitchen or something.
In the bathroom. Yeah.
And like to be able to do that nowadays, right? To just have a mic and a interface and write and record a whole album yourself, and then to see the success that you've built kind of since, obviously. And then you had moments. I mean, I did see that you did like American Idol and stuff, but
yes.
But it would, and then I'm thinking like that was probably the best thing to happen as far as not making it to a certain point, because then you would have just been known as, oh, that's Elliot, from American Idol. That's probably a stigma a lot of people wouldn't want to have attached to them.
It can be. I mean, at that time, I got pretty far in the show, to be completely honest with you, and it was a little bit of a sore point, because they didn't air one single piece of my footage. And
really, I was wondering about that, because I was reading it and I'm like, I don't see anything. And then I see that you did a couple. I didn't dive too far into it because a lot of people don't even want to talk about it. But like, I saw that like Fitz was on your season.
Yeah.
I have had him on the show before.
Oh, cool.
And like, but like to see, I'm like, am I looking at the right thing? Like, what is happening here?
Yeah. Fitz is great. He's so talented. And I never got aired, which at the time, I mean, at the time I was pretty devastated, and because I was like, I was just seeing that show as an exposure,
right? Of course.
And for whatever reason, they didn't. I mean, I have my own thoughts in it, but that's just, that's neither here nor there. All I can say is, at the time, I was devastated, because I was like, "Oh, are you kidding me? Like, what the hell?" Like, just me personally, I am I'm so grateful that it was not the right thing for me. It was not the right decision. Actually, it was the right decision not to air me. I wouldn't be sitting with a record deal without it if I had been aired. So it was, you know, again, it all comes back to that thing where if it's not meant for you, sometimes it just slips on by you, you know. And it's I'm so grateful for the experience. I'm so grateful for the people that I've met. And I mean, such talented people, like some of the greatest singers I've ever been in a room with collectively, like truly, truly talented people. But I just don't think I was right for that show. And I had a gut feeling going into that when they asked me to do it. I was like, I declined it twice. And I was like, I don't think, yeah, I was like, I don't think I'm the right thing for this. And then they heard that Katy Perry song. That's what they heard. That Never Really Over.
I see.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought those were songs that you did on the show that didn't get aired. But like,
So I did. That was the case, but that was the song that I posted online that the talent scout heard.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I
Yeah, so
played it
you
for,
weren't cattle call guy. Like, okay, I'm gonna wait outside this theater for.
No, I'll be honest with you. They asked me twice, and I was like, no, it's just like very grateful, very like thank you, but not my cup of tea. But it was a great experience. But again, like we were saying, it was definitely the right decision, and I'm so grateful that didn't happen. You know,
Right.
let's just say that.
That's fascinating though. So like, because they make, I looked and I'm like, maybe they just,
Yeah.
no, not even worth our conversation.
They just cut right
cut
through.
around you. That's weird.
Cut around. Yeah.
But I want to talk to you about your new song and hear what you have coming up. So I Bought Honda is the new one. We kind of addressed it in the very beginning, like the video and everything else. So
I
tell me
bought
about
a Honda.
that song and what you have coming up.
That song means a lot to me. That's a song that I wrote right here, actually. So I'm looking at the same view as I wrote it. And awesome. It's pretty. It's a song that it's pretty simple, but it's essentially it's not a real life experience. A lot of my songs I take from. I try and see myself more as like a storyteller versus like personal experiences. A lot of some of the songs I write are real, but a lot of them are just my imagination. It's more my exploration as a writer. So yeah, it's essentially a guy who lost essentially the love of his life, and the last memory he had with her was in an old beat up Honda. And this is however many years later. It could be 10, it could be 20, and he randomly goes and buys a Honda in memory of her, just to, because that's the closest thing he'll ever have to having her back. So yeah, it's when you say it, whenever I say it live, people, and if they don't know the song, they usually chuckle. They laugh. They're like, "What is this song?" And then usually by the end, some of them are actually in tears, and they're like, "Wait, that's like oddly heartbreaking."
It
so
is.
yeah,
I mean, he talks about like, I hope that your dad like approves of this guy. Basically saying like, just all these things. I'm like, it's really, really well written. I just kind of, when I saw about a Honda, I'm like, oh, okay, well, interesting. And then I love that you used an old Honda, because I had like a 94 Honda when I got my license. And then I'm like, is he gonna like really make me feel like super old when I see like this 2002 Honda?
No, that was no.
You had like an 80s Honda.
Yeah, that was like a 1985 Honda that we were able to get our hands on, and it was great. I mean, it was just, I had a very clear vision in my head when I wrote the song. When I had the music video essentially done as I was writing it. It was a very visual storytelling song. So that it's a song that is close to me, and I'll always have. It's if you appreciate, like, I sort of see that song a little bit like, not so much in. It's a weird thing. It feels almost like a small short film in a song form. It's a very descriptive song. It doesn't follow the traditional rules of a sort of I don't want to say it's a commercially driven song, but for a song, it has old school storytelling, I think, through it. That was the aim, at least, to really try and paint the picture. Because a guy singing about a car is, it is what it is. But it's like, how do you make that interest? How do you make that listener actually go like, oh my goodness, that's heartbreaking? Talking about a piece of
Yeah.
machinery. Because it's about a car, but then it's not really about it's
not
about
really. Don't.
it's love.
Yeah.
It's not,
The
it all
car
comes
is
back
just a
to love.
symbol of basically of what the person, like you said, the person, that's the one piece that he can have of
Yeah,
that relationship, because it's
yeah,
over and they've moved on.
they've moved on. And then after that, I have my first headline show in Denver, Colorado on August 2nd, which is really, really exciting.
Awesome.
And so that's if you want to get any tickets to that, the link is in my bio. And that should be really fun. I'm going to be playing a lot of unreleased songs, a lot of songs that it's just going to kind of be like an evening list. And if you you get to hear my whole discography, the good and the
Incredible.
bad. So yeah, it should be fun. I've never been to Denver before. I've never been to Colorado in general, so it'll be really interesting to see what that's all about. And then hopefully a tour is in the horizon. I know that's something that we're working out with my agents. And just a lot of cool things are definitely in the mix. Obviously nothing is set in stone, but and then just going to be making the album, which is, I know everyone's been messaging me going like, are we ever going to get an album, or are you just going to keep posting songs? So for anyone
Which is a
those
good
people,
thing, right? Instead of being like,
we don't want
just
an album.
Anticipate, or kind of playing the game of, I'm gonna just put a single out every few months. It's like people are excited to hear more than the next one song.
Yeah, well, some of my favorite artists and some of my favorite songs are they're not the singles. It's always the album tracks that I like. So there's
Same
a lot
here.
of there's a lot of songs that I'm like, I don't know if this is a single, but this is a great album track that I want to I would want to listen to. So going to Nashville to cut the record. And hopefully that, I don't know when that will be out, but I'm hoping in the near future, to keep it nice and specific.
Sure.
But just all really excited. I'm just really grateful for everyone who's engaged and who's still buying into this thing, and it keeps me very much in awe, which is really, it's really amazing. But really exciting. I've got I've got a few more singles coming out, which will be announced soon. About the next one I'm working on, I feel I think it's going to be cool. It's a polar opposite to Honda. It's a much darker song.
Oh, wow.
So it'll be interesting to see how that lands. So I'm very excited about that.
Very cool, man. Well, thank you, Elliot, for doing this. I have one more question.
Yeah.
It's interesting because my last question is if you have any advice for aspiring artists, but like you kind of just gave us an hour of advice. But I don't know if you have one specific thing you want to shout out some advice to aspiring artists.
I've said this before and I said it today, but I will just hit home again, because I'm trying to talk to even like 2 years ago. And I think people are getting this now, but I think if there's anyone who was remotely like me, waiting for that moment or that person to come in and change your life, it can happen, but that is 1 in a million chance. And why give one person that much power? You should be the one. You should. So I learned production. You don't have to be Dave Cobb or Max Martin or whoever you would call it. And you don't have to be, John Mayer at the guitar. You don't have to be Bob Dylan at lyrics. But if you can find something that you go like, this is what I'm good at, and at least get the idea out there and capture the essence. It doesn't have to be perfect. People don't care about perfect now. You know, people want something that's real and relatable. So if you can just capture the essence of that you don't have to have a, you know, a Neumann. You can have $100. You can have an SM58 and, you know, totally do the whole thing. You know, many legendary songs. You could get a whole $300 budget and make a whole record. I did it. And just take control of those moments. And I do believe that is the reason. If you create your own ecosystem, visitors will start coming in and going, can I have a little bit? Can I take a little bit? And then you're at the discretion to go like, yeah, I think I'd like to work with you, or yeah, that would be cool. So, but it's like building your own world first and not relying on anyone too soon, you know.